Just kind of going over the history of this school, the land that it occupied pre-colonially, um, during the colonial, during the colonial era, during the during the 20th century, and we'll kind of analyze, just kind of look over. I think it's interesting to look over. Hi, I'm Nicholas Garrett. Today we'll be looking at the history of St. Louis Park High School. We'll be looking over the sort of colonial era of it, obviously, the people that once occupied it, the land that it once was, and the land that the history of the school itself. Park students that attend St. Louis Park High School, spend a lot of spend a lot of their time in the building on West 33rd Street. Nearly all of their time, actually. We don't think about the land that we occupy. So there's a lot to learn. Let's go over it. To start, Dakota and Ojibwe indigenous history in the Minnesota region does go back hundreds of years before that, or before their presence there. Even more Native American peoples lived and traded and hunted and had societies in Minnesota for thousands of years. Now, as European settlers moved into the region, as European settlers moved westward during the 18th century, they put pressure on the Dakota and Ojibwe tribes. Obviously, the Columbia era, the era of the age of this was during the Age of Discovery. European settlers, French, English, those sorts of influences began to arrive in this region. In 1805, under brutal compulsion, really, to do so, Dakota and Ojibwe peoples signed a treaty that ceded their territory, 100,000 acres of it, actually, that is now land that is land that now St. Louis Park and the entirety of St. Paul, Minneapolis, those are places that this land was now turned over to the U.S. government due to this treaty. So we essentially occupy, what was at one point indigenous land. This was land that was immorally taken from indigenous peoples unfairly. They existed under brutal conditions, and we took it. And we need to, obviously we should acknowledge that. Before we can really talk about the, contemporary history or 20th century history, we need to acknowledge that fact that Dakota and Ojibwe peoples had to sign this coercive treaty in order for our institution to exist. Now, there is history, of course, before there was plenty of development during the sort of early 1930s and 1940s in this sort of region. That's the suburban area around St. Louis Park. There was development there. There was sort of this expanse outward, as with many suburban areas are essentially developed and constructed. But St. Louis Park as a school itself did not exist until September 8th, 1956. St. Louis Park High School officially opened on a 17-acre plot on 33rd Street and Dakota Avenue. According to the, obviously, said there was high schools before that existed, but essentially St. Louis Park High School was sort of an effort to merge student bodies from different high schools. We are at the, obviously now St. Louis Park High School is introduced. Now, according to the St. Louis Park Historical Society, sort of immediately there was a controversy. Due to encouragement from a disc jockey, many female students started showing up wearing knee-high apparel, sort of during the beginning stages of the school. The principal at the time, Edward Fulmer, shut it down, shut this sort of controversy down, saying that Park, quote, can't allow bizarre clothing. As it was, a group of 15 boys then protested by hissing at the principal and singing the song Chain Gang in protest of what the principal had done here. The outcome is a bit unclear from there. The Historical Society's timeline says that the school student council, quote, calmed the situation down, unquote. And then the school then sought to create a teen dress code. So already you kind of have some controversy, some youth protests, some youth action going on. If we want to sort of imagine what this place looked like, according to the St. Louis Park Historical Society, the place was apparently decked out with some of the equipment of the day. We had copper appliances for the kitchens. We had these big clunky adding machines and calculators for your business classes. There were 5 at the time, or sort of in the beginning stages. Eventually, the school did acquire, during the 60s, IBM computers, some, a little bit more modern tech. Not modern by today, of course, but in the cafeteria, one could sit at provincial style chairs and eat sloppy joes at a Formica tabletop. The kitchen was styled yellow and blue-green, fit with 3 electrical stoves, 2 dishwashers, and 3 gas ranges. Imagining this place, imagining sitting at St. Louis Park, in the cafeteria at St. Louis Park High School in the 60s. It's an interesting thought. In the next year, 9,600 students would be recorded within the school system. This would be the district, obviously, not St. Louis Park High School itself. A sort of a little note on the timeline even says that 97 teachers were also added in that year due to an quote, epidemic of pregnancies, unquote. Just a little note I found interesting about the timeline. Now rather coincidentally to what you're listening to, journalism was one of the first classes added to the curriculum upon the high school's opening. Journalism, there was an electricity class that was added as well, along with that. The Echo, obviously, was already up and running in February of 1957 to catch an interview with Pearl Sewers, the cafeteria supervisor at the time. They did an interview with her, and they even have a little quote on the timeline about her making sloppy joes and how that was the dish that the meal that she seemed to be most fond of making for the students there at the time. During 1961, we had the construction, in July of 1961, we had the construction of what we sort of consider today as the circle in the St. Louis Park, or in the St. Louis Park High School. This annular style of the C hallway. It began construction, and it opened in 1962. At the time, it was known as the silo. There are pictures of this construction happening during this time on a timeline provided, as I said, by the St. Louis Park Historical Society. You can Google it probably and find some of these very interesting pictures that we have of I mean, they're in gray. They're in black and white. But it looked quite messy. I mean, compared to the construction we have going on right now, it actually kind of supersedes it. And it seems as if some of the Echo people were at the time were kind of on the case about that, on the case about the construction, checking in with it, sort of trying to gauge students' reactions to it, kind of much like how we do today. In a lot of ways, it seems like the Echo has not changed over the past 60 plus years. From the 1963 to 64 school year, we have the bemoaned policy of closed lunch was first implemented as well. That is something that we have today, particularly as as of recording the school the cafeterias that we once occupied are now under renovation, under construction. We cannot access them, and so we sit in these gymnasiums that have been repurposed for lunch. And so the policy at the time was forbidding students it forbade students from leaving the lunchroom or to even sit out on the frontal campus. Kind of similar to now, really, as I said. We're sort of seeing these connections here. We had the Oriole. Now, obviously, one of the sort of front men for St. Louis Park, the St. Louis Park School District, is the Oriole bird. That is our our district mascot, essentially. It appears at all of our sort of sports games. And the story about the origins of the Oriole, I think, are pretty intriguing because there's no clear answer to this. I'm going to read off basically a big, long quote from Ward Johnson of St. Louis Park School at the time of investigating this sort of thing. This was in the 1930s in St. Louis Park. Obviously, this is going before the high school itself as we have it today. But nonetheless, as said, the history of the Oriole, I think, is intriguing. Now, Ward Johnson says that quote, in 1933, I think my dad, Irvin Johnson, was the coach of the basketball team and baseball team. Getting ready for the basketball season, they had no uniforms. My dad located some black and orange wool, used basketball uniforms at a good price. They were purchased, and my dad then, because of the black-orange color scheme, decided to name the team the St. Louis Park Orioles. So that is how the name Orioles came to SLP, unquote. That is his account of it. There are other explanations for it. One account is Bill Johnson named the school teams the Orioles in 1933. We have the football section of, the 1937 Echowan refers to the Orioles, kind of implying this was, it said specifically refers to the Orioles, quote, as they are now named, unquote. And so it's kind of a mystery. This could imply that the Orioles was a new name at the time. Sort of getting my perspective on it, I think this is obviously, I don't have a specific date for you, but definitely during the, 1930s, sort of the era of the emergence of Orioles. As the district mascot. We don't know fully, though. And it's intriguing that it's a sort of school mystery, at least from what I have gathered. But we don't really have a solid answer on that. Another interesting thing from the 60s during St. Louis Park schools, St. Louis Park High School was from 1962 to 1964. Now, some historical, sort of context for this is that 62 was the area, sort of period when, of course, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis and Cold War tensions at this point were really high. And so from 62 to 64, the Park District actually added Russian to the language curriculum of the school during this very tense period in the Cold War. This is interesting. These are all just kind of, interesting factoids about really how St. Louis Park, high school kind of responded, the district sort of responded to these big historical events. Now, throughout the 70s, there was history. There was obviously, history going into the 70s and the 80s and the 90s of St. Louis Park. These were kind of the 60s era, though, was really sort of the emerging, era for the school, the institution. But one thing that I do kind of notice throughout the development of St. Louis Park High School and the history of it is sort of how youth action, youth involvement in this school has really sort of been there from the beginning. We had in the 60s we had youth committees. We had a student council that did weigh in on some early decision making. As I said, going back to the controversy sort of in the beginning years of the school with that, the knee-high apparel ban. We had, a youth council or a student council look at that and sort of assess it. Youth action and youth involvement has been pretty essential in cultivating the community here. Today, obviously, we have things like the Echo, but we've had that from the beginning. We need to keep in mind that, the Echo has really been student-led for a very long time. And I think it's really sort of, the fact that we've had this sort of history for a long time about, youth-centered, or not youth-centered, but as I said, we have had youth involvement in the community for a long time here. That is something to keep in mind in terms of thinking about, obviously how one can affect their school community. In particular, it's like, well, the first step is getting on committees, getting in groups, and just taking a decisive role. That is something, as I said, that is here, fortunately for us, at Park. And it seems like it's been here to, at least a decent extent from nearly the beginning. And hopefully we can at least take that from looking through a little bit of the early sort of preliminary history, some of the, a little bit goofy stuff of St. Louis Park. As I said, yes, there was history in, the 70s and 80s. But honestly, looking at, I think, the emergent, aspects of the school, like it really formed the school and shaped the school as we know it. A lot of the stuff that we take for granted here today rests in this era in the 1950s and 60s when the school was forming. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed. I know it was not, a full history, but it was certainly a preliminary history, and we got a little bit of the Echo in there, which is always great. Thank you. Goodbye.